It's really about how information technology allows civil servants, the police, emergency and rescue crews, the folks who go around making sure that the sewers don't back up, helping them to do their jobs better. So the idea is, every police cruiser now in the city of Houston, I believe now has some sort of computing device in it. There are probably exceptions in a yard someplace, but we won't delve into that. So there are computers out there. And computers are powerful devices, so when a police officer makes a traffic stop, in the old system, which is a radio-based and a proprietary system which was set up to communicate data, they'll put in a license plate and they'll get a bunch of text. Well, that's good, but on a traffic stop, wouldn't it be better to put in a license plate number and get a supposition of who has the registration, pull up their driver's license data, and have a picture, and know, oh, this is the person who's in this car. Which there are issues, there are privacy issues and all of this stuff, and that's something we're going to have to discuss as each piece of this goes forward, and we always have to pay attention to that. But it enables the police officer to know much better who that person is. I mean, traffic stops are about the most dangerous thing a cop on the beat can do. And for them to have the best possible information before they go out there and have an interaction with someone who could potentially be very dangerous is the holy grail for that kind of activity. Now, on the con side, the question is, how do we build a network? And we have competing ideas for what networks we want. Do we want fiber optics going everywhere? Do we want to use wireless connections that go far beyond cell phones and what we're used to using in the wireless domain? And the question is, who's going to build it, and how's it going to get paid for? It's a pretty simple issue. The answer, however, is very complicated because do you allow one company to come in and build everything and have a monopoly? Do you bring in competition in one way, and if so, how? And if you're allowing competition, how can the government regulate? So that's the issue. And when we look at that, we look back to 100 years ago when we were building out the telephone system and say, well, how did we get one telephone system? Because something that's not well understood is that 100 years ago, if you were in a city somewhere in the United States, you had a good chance that there were two telephone companies, and you'd have to buy a phone line from two companies so you could talk to everybody you knew. And that is an analog for today, where we have wireless connections, we have satellite connections, we have different cable and DSL and fiber optic connections all out there, and you have companies competing with different networks they're building, but all trying to sell an increasingly homogeneous set of services. And the con is, how do you build out the next generation of infrastructure with this kind of activity going on? It's an interesting mix now. When we look at the telephone system, the Bell, the original phone company, held a patent and enforced that patent for a period of time, and built out big pieces of a network, and then were eventually able to create a national monopoly, a regulated monopoly, on the concept of universal service. And universal service was something people really disagreed about 100 years ago, but it was a political issue 100 years ago. And now we're having a similar set of debates. Well, should everyone have a broadband connection? Will this be a net gain for our city's population? And you have people who say yes, you have some who say no. But what's more complicated now is you do have corporate players out there like AT&T, who is still out there and who is a Texas-based company. And you have cities and states and the federal government all working on policy. You especially have municipalities, cities, in other words, saying what they'd like to do to make their cities more livable. So the idea is we give away wireless internet for free in common spaces, and that will attract more people to come live here. Because if you go to the park in Houston, you can flip open your laptop and you can be telecommuting immediately, or some idea like that.